Hello everyone, myself Vaibhav, and in today's session, we will be, of course, looking at the regression and correlation analysis for various financial instrument, and we will be looking at the strength and the weaknesses of the financial instrument of the same class to see how we can take advantage of the price dynamics prevalent in the market to look for the opportunities which we are likely to find more probable to end in profitable side and not on the losing side. So let us now head to the JForex for the newly released trading platform for the Dukascopy Bank SA. This is the EURUSD chart with the candle period being defined at 5 minutes. I have added this Donchian channel 24, which represents the range of last 2 hours, and Donchian channel 48, which represents the range for last 4 hours, as this is the indicator with a calculation period of 48 with each candle defined at 5 minutes. That's the 240-minute worth of data which we are looking at to look at how things are shaping up prior to the entry, and in relative terms we always have to see what is the trajectory of the underlying instrument and how it is comparing with its peer instruments to get a good idea and multiple confirmation points for finding out the trend as well as the relative strength and weakness of the trend. Now, if we look at the Euro USD's price trajectory so far in the day, we have this flat looking momentum with not much of a price range. I think for these 4 hours, the range was at 40 pips, and then it narrowed further with the range dipping to 20 pips, 20 odd pips. Now, after the release of US data, we saw this sharp move which has enlarged the range for the Euro USD. And if we look at the immediate momentum, it is slightly bearish, but it is not trend wise bearish. We still have this prior swing low intact, and as long as this correction is contained within our lows, we will still have the reasons to believe that it's a momentum which has been upward, slightly upward. It is not exactly bullish, or you can say strongly bullish, but still the trajectory has been more favorable for buy on dips kind of strategy and fairly close to this immediate swing low. But then this rebound is happening from around this low, so we still have this formation of higher lows. And moving forward, even if you don't really get involved in the trade immediately right away, we still have reasons to believe in the continuity. And as I said again earlier also, we have to go for a consolidation maybe next couple of hours if we don't really see Euro USD dipping past the range of the price range of 1.05 is going to be crucial moving ahead. Hi Anis, can you hear me now, or there is still too much of noise? Let's resume. Please let me know. Now, as we are talking about this formation, where we have this support coming into play at the price range of around 1.05, we will have to wait for next couple of hours for things to. Yeah, I think there is some music playing in a nearby restaurant, and the mic seems to be picking up from that as I am in a beach town of Bali. So I think we will have to continue in this session for today, and maybe Monday I will find a solution to that as well. All right, so let's continue. Now, coming to the Euro USD price formation, as I said, we will have to allow a couple of more hours for stabilization, and if we see the Euro USD holding well above this 1.05 range or thereabout, we will have reasons to believe in the continuity of this trajectory, and in that scenario we will be in position to go for the initiation of the new entries as and when we feel the things are optimum enough and our risk should not be really too high. so we can live with that kind of risk. So only when we feel that reward is much larger than the risk which we will have to take, we will be in circumstances where we can take the plunge. Now, whether we have to go long in the Euro USD or any other major currency against the dollar, if we are expecting the dollar to remain softer, then for that we will have to look at the trajectory of these various currencies against the dollar, and looking at the timeline as well as the magnitude of these relative moves, we will get a good idea of how things are shaping up. Let's consider the AUD first. Then one by one, we will look at all the major currency crosses of the USD, AUDUSD, GBPUSD, NZDUSD, USD CHF, USD CAD, and of course USDJPY included. Now, looking at the AUDUSD's price formation, here this drop happened, which pushed the AUDUSD almost 50 pips lower. But the turnaround has also been equally sharp, and if we consider the larger time frame formation, we have this trajectory which is, I think, relatively, looking at this price formation, we do find the upward momentum to be on the stronger footing compared to the Euro USD. Here also, if we compare this price move 11 GMT onwards, we had this fresh 4 hourly high, and if we look at the Euro USD, it was trading almost flat. So in today's session also, AUD USD is trading stronger compared to the Euro USD. So if and when we have to go for a trade in which we expect the dollar to weaken further, remain bearish, in that scenario, the AUD has the lead with Euro. Now let's see what's happening in the GBP. GBP is also quite strong for the day. It has been able to erase almost all of these losses, and it is fairly close to the high. This is high established at 1.2298. And if we go back in time, this low was formed at 11 GMT, and after that it went on to make this fresh swing high at 1325 GMT. Now let's compare it to the AUD. AUD at around the same time, so there is not much of a difference. So we will have to consider another factor, the magnitude of this move, and then we will be in a position to judge between AUD and GBP. The GBP has made this day's high just prior to the decline, and for AUD, the AUD was trading a bit softer for the day. So in that context, we have to go with the GBP, as GBP is now fairly close to the day's high. But in case of the AUD, it has made this day's high earlier in the session, earlier in the day, prior to the start of the European trading session. After that, it has traded sideways. So we will have to prefer GBP to the AUD. Let's consider NZD as well. NZD, it is showing the trajectory somewhat similar to the AUD. We had this move on the higher side with this swing high formation happening at around same time. Then it has now clawed back almost half of the losses after the release of US data. So this is more in line with the price formation of the AUD. There is not much of a difference between these two Asia Pacific currencies. Here we do have slightly more strength for the NZD compared to the AUD, but it is still behind the GBP. So now that we have compared four currencies, we got highest strength parameters fulfilled. Is disconnected. There is something issue with the net. Okay, all right, we got the connection back. Is disconnected. There is something issue with the net. Okay, all right, we got the connection back. is because of this interaction with because of the internet. Now as we are getting back, let me remove this indicator. USD CHF declined quite a lot in this release, and prior to that it was trading almost flat. So CHF is not looking that strong either, and it is something somewhere in the middle of the pack. It is not that strong. It had made this high a couple of hours back, and it is correcting. But if we look at this immediate jump and then reversal, CHF is going to stand ahead of the euro, but of course behind the GBP and NZD. Let's consider what's happening in the USD CAD. The CAD is relatively weaker. It has continued to make these higher highs for the day. So this is one of the weakest currency against the dollar, and for the CAD, the trajectory is rather inward of other major currencies against the dollar. It is so far it is the only currency which is showing bearish tendency against the dollar, whereas for most other currencies the momentum is on the bullish side. So this is a case where if you feel that dollar is not really going to weaken further in today's session, in that kind of scenario you can bet on the CAD for you to profit. And if you expect USD to hold on to similar levels or appreciate moving forward, then the USD CAD is going to be one of the best bet to take, as it is trading quite weak compared to the other currencies. So now we have got some clarity in the spectrum, CAD being the weakest and GBP being the strongest in the bullish momentum against the dollar. Before we complete this assessment, we of course have to consider what's happening in the USDJPY. And for USDJPY, the prior swing low came in at 135.77, and this was below that. So here the the USDJPY is also going with the dollar's weakness, and we saw the JPY being quite strong, almost on par with the GBP. So it is, I think, a matter of taste, or simply looking at this relative move. It is of 100 pips. So magnitude wise, I think USD JPY is going to provide you a lead compared to the move in GBP, which was only 50 pips. So on magnitude side, the JPY seems to be on the stronger wicket. Here we have the JPY being the strongest of all the major currencies against the dollar, whereas CAD is the weakest. So now you have to see what is the current price formation is telling you, and then in relative terms, as we have much clarity, if you are waiting for the dollar to remain softer throughout the today's session before the close at midnight, you can go with this JPY or GBP. Or if you expect the dollar to gain strength moving ahead for next couple of hours, then the USD CAD I think is providing a much favorable opportunity to trade with. Now let's shift to the equity segment, where we will mainly concern ourselves with three major US equity indices. The US equity index of Dow Jones, it also declined substantially, more than 1 percentage point at the release of data. And if we consider its price formation for a last couple of days, it has traded in a narrow range with bias slightly being on the bullish side. So leading up to this release, it was showing same tendency just climbing up and up, though at a much lower pace. Now this decline has changed that momentum, that projection somewhat, and we will have to be cautious moving ahead. And here I don't really think that it makes sense for us to jump in and go for any buy trade, rather as things are looking more favorable for the bearish trade, both from the short term as well as from the longer term charting of 1 hourly candle time frame. It is going to be much better for us to keep looking for short selling opportunities. But here also, I think now, after considering this sharp move, we will have to take it easy and allow at least next couple of hours to pass. And if in that case we don't really see any big move beyond 34,000, so anywhere closer to this immediate swing high should be a good enough price for shorting it on the lower side. And for that, we have to carry out the assessment in relative terms to see which is the weakest and which is the strongest in this bear phase for the US equities. From the intraday point of view, the decline for the S&P 500 was also more than 1 percentage point, close to 2 percentage point, do not exactly. And for Dow Jones, the decline was a bit less in percentage terms, and also if we look at this prior swing high formation, it happened later on compared to S&P 500. So we seem to get the idea that in relative terms, we have slightly more bearish tendency prevalent in the S&P 500 compared to the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And for Nasdaq, the Nasdaq has moved lower by almost 2 percentage point. So here the magnitude is much higher for the Nasdaq. And if we look at the price formation, it was in timeline wise, it was actually holding quite well, was not declining that much. But now this decline and its magnitude is changing the picture a little bit, so we will have to be careful and see how things shape up moving ahead. But as of now, as the things stand, it is I think more favorable for bearish trade rather than the bullish trade from the intraday perspective. So we will have to keep this immediate swing high established at 11,730 in mind, and the price anywhere closer to that, with no big break on the higher side in next couple of hours should be a good enough price point to take the risk and keep the stop losses rather sharp, while expecting the immediate momentum to provide a push where the underlying instrument, in this case the Nasdaq, might remain range bound or trade with the slightly bearish bias. So in both scenarios, we will stand to gain if the projections hold well. So everyone, that's all from my side for today's session. If any of you have any query or any idea, please write me in the feedback. And before I wrap up the session, let's also consider what's happening in the European equity indices. So please give me the feedback before I wrap up for any particular instrument if you want to be covered. Now in DAX, the things are almost similar to what we saw for the three major equity indices for the United States. There is not much of a difference. The larger time frame formation is also almost similar, with slightly more bearish tendency prevalent in the DAX. In last session, yesterday's session, it was almost flat. Then in today's session, it tried to gain ground, but this decline has been rather sharp, and it pushed it closer to where it started in yesterday's session. So I think looking at that price point, we do have the lead on the bearish side in the DX, but then there is not much of a time left for the European equity indices to close, and after that we can expect these moves to narrow further. So we will have to be careful, and maybe it will be a better idea to stick with the US equity indices. So that's all for the day. I will be back on Monday with probably a more quieter place. to conduct the session. See you on Monday. Let's have fun over the weekend.